Hello, welcome to Movies I Love with yours truly, Nomfanelo Malloy. So, before I begin, I just want to let you know that if you'd like to give a donation or join my membership, you could go on Buy Me a Coffee. I have the link for that in the description. Also, too, if you're interested in making your own videos on Riverside, which is the platform that I'm using for my videos, you could click on my affiliate link in the description. All right, so the film that I will be covering today is School of Rock, which is a 2003 comedy film. Is directed by Richard Linklater, who's known for directing the Before Trilogy and Boyhood. The screenplay is by Mike White, who is also co-starring in the film as Ned Schneebly. So the film stars Jack Black, Joan Cusack, and Sarah Silverman. So, quick thoughts on this movie. So I really enjoy this movie. I've watched this movie over and over since it came out, and I still love it today, 20 years later, which this year is the film's 20th anniversary. So, congratulations to this movie on that. So, let's get into why I love this movie. So, first off, the plot. I like how it's simple with the story by essentially focusing on Dewey trying to create a band after getting kicked out by his former band. And essentially, he pretends to be his roommate, Ned, by taking a job as a substitute teacher for money, essentially. And even though, he does that under false pretenses, he does end up caring for the students and really honing, I guess, his craft as a musician, because we saw before earlier in the movie, he essentially wanted the center of attention. And then while he was a substitute teacher, he still kind of wanted to be the center of attention by having everyone prioritize the Battle of the Bands contest, but ends up, caring for the students and wanting to let them shine. But at least he has his moments to shine. With that performance. So also too, I like how the movie has a balance of comedy and heart, because especially when you have Jack Black in the lead role, who's known for being, I guess, eccentric with a lot of the roles he has done, especially with his earlier work, and really with this sort of movie, like with an actor like Jack Black, it could potentially go too extreme with the comedy. And I liked how here it doesn't go that way to be goofy for goofy's sake. Because yes, we do get the comedy, the jokes here and there, but I like how it's more organic, I suppose, than being too forced. And with the heart, we see that Dewey and the kids, they end up bonding, like when they're practicing the music and they're getting to know each other and all sorts of that throughout the movie. And a particular moment I want to highlight is when Dewey gets exposed as a fraud, essentially, the kids decide to visit him at his place to convince him to do the battle of the bands. And that was just a nice moment, I guess, for not just the kids, but with Dewey himself. And also, too, even though it doesn't go too deep into this theme in terms of going for commercial music versus authentic music, because I do like its approach on those themes, because it's still happening in the music industry, but because this is, I guess you could say, a family film, it doesn't go too deep into that. So essentially here, No Vacancy, that's Dewey's old band, they kick him out because essentially they want to be more commercial and popular and all that stuff, because we see During their Battle of the Bands performance, they polished their look. The lead singer cut his hair short. And the music, like, it's okay, but it's very different from what they performed in the opening sequence of the movie. And the twist with School of Rock, because clearly the audience loved their performance, but having them lose to No Vacancy is an interesting choice because you figured that, like, with this sort of movie, with everyone on the School of Rock's side, despite the circumstances, that they would automatically win, but they lose, which is interesting because with that, it illustrates the point that it was made earlier in the movie that good music at times is not always rewarded by the industry, essentially, which does happen. And it is hilarious, I'll point, that there was only the one person, the one guy, that cheered for No Vacancy when they won their prize, which is hilarious. And also, too, the Stick It to the Man. That one is fun, but also poignant too, because essentially it's like those F the system type message, which I guess is a staple in music, and you could argue in life as well too. The cast performances, I thought everyone did a great job. Like Jack Black did his thing as the lead, and I do want to point out, yeah, Joan Cusack did a great job as Principal Mullins because she was essentially playing like the straight character in terms of her delivery. And the kids in the movie with the students, like they also did a great job as well too. Because I believe most of them, it's probably their first time doing this movie. But yeah, kudos to them for doing a great job in this movie. And going off with the kids, I thought the students, they had their moments to shine, which was nice. For example, when Tamika, she sings to Dewey for the first time because she is a shy person, because that's why she didn't immediately volunteer the first time to do background backup singing because I guess she is afraid of singing in front of the whole class, but then later on she, builds up her comfort zone to do so in front of a crowd. And with Zach, essentially, he's dealing with the issues with his father, and then there's a moment when he's sad, and then Dewey does that improv song asking the students like what ticks them off, and then Dewey asks Zach, "Oh, what do you tell a bully?" Then Zach's like, "Step off," and then Dewey goes on from there, which makes Zach smile, which is nice. And lastly, not last, second lastly, the soundtrack, obviously, since it's all about music. It's a lot of rock and roll music. Some you'd be able to recognize, such as the Back in Black song when Dewey makes his selections for the band, and the Immigrant song when Dewey and the kids, they leave the auditorium after essentially fooling the people in charge of the contest to get them in to get their slot for the contest. And lastly, I do want to point out some scenes. I think, yeah, every scene in the movie stands out in their own ways. I'll just highlight a few. For example, the opening title sequence was cool with the names on the posters, and then on the wall with the title of the movie was cool. And it looked like it was filmed as a continuous one shot, so that was cool when we see the people like entering the building with the shots of the names on the posters before we meet Dewey and No Vacancy. Also, too, when Dewey first talks about the class project, because I guess some of the students are just confused as to like why are we doing this music instead of what we're supposed to doing. But hey, the kids are having fun at the same time. And then as like Dewey gets a few of the students to play the instruments based on what he saw. with the when with their screwed up. So it's just based off like from what he saw when the kids were doing their music class. And the other students were a bit jealous because they didn't want to just sit there and do nothing. And Leonard says a line, "You mean we're not in the band?" Which is sad. But then Dewey's like, "Hey, just because you're not in the band does not mean you're not in the band." And then he asks for background singers, and then he casts all of the crew roles and goes on from there. And interesting moment too, when the students, like when they're talking about influences to figure out what type of music to play and all that stuff. The students list like I guess popular singers such as Christina Aguilera, P. Diddy, Liza Minnelli, which is the opposite of what Dewey wants. And then it's hilarious that that the students, they don't know who Dewey is talking about, because I guess with his music is a bit out of the students' time, I suppose. But that one was funny. And obviously with the whole battle of the band sequence, from No Vacancies performance to what we see happen backstage, their performance with performing Zach's song last minute, and that eventually, after when they do like the encore, that fades into them doing the after school program. So, and then we see the end credits. So I thought that one was cool. And in terms of criticisms, I don't really have a lot, but I just have two. So the first is so Patty, played by Sarah Silverman, she essentially is a controlling girlfriend of Ned. And when Ned decides to go see Dewey and the students at the Battle of the Bands, Patty, is upset, wants him to stay and all this stuff, and then he just leaves and shuts the door in front of her. I felt like, and then we don't see her afterwards from there. I felt as though there could have been a moment of Ned confronting Patty for being controlling and all that stuff that eventually leads to the breakup. But I guess the way they do it in the movie, I guess it's fine. But I felt like there could have been that moment for me where it's just a bit more clear. And the last criticism I have is that after when Principal Mullins talks to Dewey as Ned on the phone. It's just hilarious that she doesn't immediately recognize his voice when they first appear together when they're at the school. I thought that was hilarious. But those are just some the critiques I have with this movie. But otherwise, it's a fantastic movie. Now, I do want to mention that I have not seen the TV series or the stage musical adaptation. I heard that the TV series wasn't that good, but I heard like the musical is fine. I wouldn't know either way. But it was interesting to learn that apparently there was a sequel because the movie did so well at the box office and all that stuff. So a sequel apparently was announced in 2008, which was going to be called School of Rock 2 America Rocks. That has Dewey leading a group of summer students on a road trip that delves into the history of rock music. So Richard Linklater, Mike White, and Jack Black were going to return, but I think eventually that sequel just didn't happen. I guess I got canceled or something. And honestly, just hearing that, I'm like, no, it doesn't sound like a good idea for a sequel. So if a sequel were to happen, which I feel like is not likely, but if it were to happen, probably they could just focus on Dewey. This is years later. Reunites with some of the students from this first movie, and they try to like relive their old days with performing the rock music and all that stuff as they're dealing with their own like personal issues with life and all that stuff. And then probably this one could be called School of Rock Back in Session, something like that. So that's pretty much all what I have to say about School of Rock. I would love to know your thoughts. Like, do you love this movie? What are your favorite scenes or moments or aspects of the film? Let me know in the comment section. So, you could find the film on your local provider. I'll provide a link in the description. You could also find the link to my socials in the description. And I want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of Movies I Love, and I will catch you on the next one.